Working Cows Podcast, episode 314. This episode is brought to you by Baja Gold Salt Company.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy everybody, it's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, recorded exclusively in the C90 Ocean Minerals Studios. And this episode is sponsored by Baja Gold Salt Company. From the makers of C90 Ocean Minerals, Baja Gold Mineral Sea Salt is the world's healthiest, most flavorful sea salt. Enjoy reduced sodium levels and more of the minerals and trace elements your body needs for peak performance. Minerals like magnesium, calcium, and potassium, and trace elements like boron, zinc, manganese, iron, and more. Our new product line will help ensure you have optimal energy, hydration, and performance throughout your day. Plus, add an extra burst of flavor for your culinary creations. Visit us at BajaGoldSaltCo.com today, or click the link in the show notes. Questions? Call us at 770-361-6092. Very excited to be joined today by Mark Firth from AeroQuip Corporation. AeroQuip is makers of all kinds of great livestock handling equipment. And we're going to talk to Mark today about kind of the mission and vision and how they go about determining the next direction to head, and how they go about thinking about innovation within their business and thinking about changes in the market and how to meet the demands of the market and the customer. And so really looking forward to this business strategy conversation with Mark, the CEO of AeroQuip Corporation. Mark, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast.
Thank you. Very glad to join.
Yeah, excited to have you. I've been appreciating the work of AeroQuip for a few years now, especially since I saw one of the products that was released was had the bud flow system in the tub where the cattle enter from the front of the tub so that they have an opportunity to turn back to where they came from, as Bud Williams has designed bud boxes and those things. And so, I'd just like to hear a little bit about his influence on the organization and on the product development over the years. If you could share a little bit of that with me as we get started.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great place to start. Bud Williams, he's been a big influence on us here at AeroQuip. It's in our name, the Bud Flow. I think one of the biggest things that we talk about here is Bud Williams has influence in our innovations department. And he really brought on a legacy in America that was really caring about the rancher. And he had a few things that he wanted to change. A lot about cattle handling efficiency. He wanted to minimize stress. So we really wanted to be part of that and really carry his legacy on in our products. I think as we're around the table talking about innovation, we're always thinking about who's done it before, who are the experts out there. And I think Bud Williams is one of those greater influences that we really look up to. So I'm glad we're starting this call off about him.
Yeah, definitely. And has been a big influence, posthumously on me. My family's actually, my brother and my dad got to go to one of his schools live. And so that was very cool. But as I've been influenced by people who were directly influenced by him through the podcast, and then gotten to implement some of those ideas and strategies and ways of thinking out when I'm working with cattle, just seeing the things that he noticed that he was able to share with the rest of us is a pretty powerful thing. So I really appreciate, like I said, the hat tip to him in the naming of some of your products and systems.
Absolutely. And just to addition on that is, I think why people trust him so much and why his legacy has has grown in America and why we look up to it as a brand, as a company, is because it works. He's gone and been with the cattle. He understands how cattle work. But I think really important, he's a rancher himself. He's been a rancher himself. So he understands how the ranching community works. And I think people can listen to that. They can get behind an idea and a person just like that.
Yeah, for sure. Brings a lot of credibility to what he's saying. And again, I think it's all about what he noticed. His ability to notice small changes and shifts in a cow's reaction to his movements really is what set him apart and what made him able to kind of capture and communicate these ideas. And I think that's for us too. When we're out and we're working, it's sometimes the smallest details that make a big difference, and the smallest movements and noticing the reaction of the livestock. Have you guys seen that in some of your own product development and some of the things that you've been working on at AeroQuip, is these small details that really make a big difference in the functionality of what you're creating?
100%. I think it's spot on. Sometimes it's the little things that make the world of difference. And I think ranchers don't often talk about that. And so as a company, as AeroQuip, we try and get beside the rancher. We call it shoot side. We try and get shoot side as often as we can, because it's the little changes you make. Little changes to the flow. You've got to understand how a cow behaves in order to work it safely. And then you've got to also understand that different breeds of cattle do different things. You get more wilder breeds and more tame breeds. And it's some of those littler things that we try and do to our products just to innovate, that we try and implement every once in a while, that make the biggest world of difference. An example, just more in the detail of the product, is we remember when we made the decision to put a rubber floor in our chute, and we did testing steel versus rubber, and the cow reacted different with a steel floor versus a rubber floor. And so it's those little details, if we can just make small little tweaks, makes a world of difference, like you say.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you're using in that testing phase? How are you testing some of those things? Is it strictly what you can observe with the eye, or are there other things that you're using to observe those cattle during those testing phases?
Good question. We always want data so we can back it up with actual facts. But I think the biggest testing we do is more feedback. It's really hard, right? Like, what is a cow happy? Is it upset? Is it stressed? There's all those things that we try and test. Probably our main thing we do is we have trusted partners that we listen to, that we take them as experts. And we try and do them in different geographical areas. So, we might have one in South Dakota, but we also might have one in Alberta. We might have one, down in Texas as well. And just get their feedback on how they feel about how the cow's reacting. But probably more in the data side of things internally at AeroQuip, we try and use different tools to get data and information. Just one example is we've designed a little gadget that will open and close doors and see how quickly our head gate doors will wear out. Now, that's just more on the usability side, but we try and get as much data as we can. But if we can keep closer to the rancher and hear what they're saying, what are their feelings, what are their thoughts, and some of the experts that have worked cows for, 30 years, we kind of trust their gut on that side of things.
Sure. Are there any innovations that are particularly exciting to you that you're working on now that you can share or that you can talk about?
We're always coming up with new innovation. I tell you what, something about AeroQuip, I don't think we've ever stopped innovating a day. And I think that's really important. Is there some exciting things coming down the pipeline? Absolutely. Do we believe that it's going to take this industry by storm? 100%. And it's for the rancher. We want to innovate for the rancher. So what we're coming out with next will really change the rancher's life. So yeah, we work on innovation every day. We invest a massive chunk of our money into innovation because we believe in it so fully. We want to change the rancher's life.
What are some of the challenges that ranchers are facing that you guys are trying to innovate and trying to overcome as it relates to their equipment and other things? But what are some of the challenges that keep you guys moving along and continuing to put the pencil to the paper and trying to make a difference?
I think challenges. There's a lot of challenges that we deal with as ranchers, but I think the ones that keep us up at night is safety, par none. Safety is most important. We have to look after the cow. We have to look after the animal. Most importantly, we have to look after the rancher. So that's something we talk about every day around the boardroom table, if you will, is safety. There's stories that I've heard. There's one gentleman that came to me a couple of years back and said to me, he's like, I want to stop you and I want to thank you for caring about innovation. And so I dug in why. He said, my niece died because a head gate fell onto her. And it actually shook me to the core because I thought at that point in whatever part of life I was in, it changed the way I thought about this industry. Safety is so, so important. There is so many people that work cattle every day, right? And it's so unexpected on what could happen. A cow could act up. You never know what's going to happen. And a lot of the time you find, you may have a father and a husband and wife working the equipment and they have young kids around the equipment. We think about that. We want to make it safe enough that people can work cattle equipment in ease.
No, I appreciate that. It is something that this lifestyle, and it's a business. This business is unique in the fact that we do tend to involve younger and younger people in all facets of it. And so that presents a whole nother level of challenges to what you guys are doing and to what we as ranchers are doing to make sure that, everybody recognizes the fact that these are, at the end of the day, these are animals and they have bad days too. And sometimes, and usually when we are approaching them, well, maybe not usually, but a lot of times when we're approaching them, it's not because they were living their best life, that something's gone wrong and they need something for us to help them get over the hump and get back to thriving. And so they're going to be a little bit off. And so we're responsible to really take note of that and approach them in a way that takes that into account. And I think that, good quality equipment is a big part of making sure that we remain safe through that whole process.
Absolutely. And I don't want to sideline all the other challenges that they are in the industry. Like we hear them, like we always, we want to be there for the ranchers that are struggling, and maybe financially that's a big thing with the way things have gone. We have to look at that and address that and see how we can help the ranchers survive in this awesome industry. Now, one thing we have to also look at as a company is what's going to happen in the next 30 years. And beef consumption's only going up. If you look at all the forecasts of beef consumption, it's only going up. We need to encourage more people to come into our industry and join us and buy cows and buy land and be part of the community with us. I think that's where we're going as a company. Let's look ahead, see how we can make this industry attractive to the next generation.
What do you think is driving the rise in beef consumption? Is it more prosperity globally that's enabling people to afford it, or what do you think is driving that?
That's a tough question because who knows? And we're always asking that question, right? But I think population, you could just put it to population. I mean, more people are being born, more people are being exposed to beef. You hear about the vegans out there. that there is, it's nothing, right? It's just, we always say it's just noise. And we don't believe in it. Beef consumption's going up, and I think that's been driven by just people demand. I think people want to eat beef. They understand that beef is good for you. It's one of the staples of our diet. And, you know, there's no scientist that can prove that beef isn't good for you. In fact, all the scientists, all the food experts say eat more beef. And we encourage that 100%.
Very, very, very true. What do you see and hear from other ranchers about equipment and equipment brands?
Yeah, I hear a lot. I mean, I've talked to a ton of ranchers around the world even in all of the states, in many states, even at trade shows, you know, you name it, being to their ranch. I think the thing about ranchers is they have a lot of problems, and that comes from working cattle, and they want to work with a manufacturer that is going to fix their problems. And so we do hear negative things about the competition. I don't want to bash them, but it has to be easy for them to work cattle. It's dangerous enough as it is. We need to make sure that when they're working cattle, it's safe. And we often say internally, let's not be one of these manufacturers that never change, that, you know, we built a chute back in, you know, I don't know, 1980, and we're not changing it today. The best chute has not been made yet. The best cattle equipment has not been made yet, but we're going to strive to make it. Yeah. We often compare ourselves to even someone like John Deere. Back in the day, you know, John Deere, they had a tractor that they probably had a few tractors, but today it's an all-in-one scenario with technology. That's where we're going. Now, we hear a lot of complaints, that's for sure, about the competitors, and we address them, and we try and address them with our competitors and say, come join us in trying to change this industry and make it better.
Yeah, I think it is a picture of an organization that's willing to think outside the box when you just say, okay, this is what a tub is, but hey, let's have the cow walk into it as close to the chute, as close to the alleyway as she can, you know, and let's put the entry on the other side. You know, I mean, that you have to be willing to say, this is what a tub is, but we're going to make it so that she enters on the other end of the door, basically, so that the gate is on the other side of her when she walks in. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, that's an organizational willingness to say, well, this is what it is, but we're going to think about it differently, and we're going to approach it differently, and we're going to make it differently. And I think that's a promising thing for me. You know, the tagline of the Working Cows podcast is providing producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm challenging practices, and you're willing to challenge the paradigm. And so it's promising going forward that you guys are going to continue to try to innovate. And so I think that's encouraging for me, for sure.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, not enough people care about the rancher, and I'm saying people like us. Not enough manufacturers say we're not doing enough for the rancher. And that's what we're coming to the table and saying, we're not doing enough. We need to do more. We need to care more about the rancher now more than ever in the conditions that we're in. And we're also calling upon our competitors, come join us. Let's do this together. Let's change. Let's help these ranchers together. And it's not complicated. It's talking to the rancher. What are your problems? And we're going to strive to fix it.
Do you have a sense of what that looks like, to invite other manufacturers to come and say, let's do this together? Is it just we're going to continue to push each other in innovation, or do you have some other format in mind?
Well, I guess we've kind of dealt with a situation where we've invited them, and we will invite them. But I think it's a challenge when there's, you know, 4 big manufacturers that have their brand and they have their trust in their brand. You know, it's us and it's yous. It's not together. I think I see that as more of it's probably going to be a step process where we invite them and let's talk together, and it's probably more of a slow process, because you generate habits as a company. where, for Firth, they generate their habits are completely different to ours, and then to Tata, different to them. Have I reached out? 100%. Will I keep reaching out? 100%. Do our values align? I have to question that to them. Do we align, and are we aligned on the same values? So yeah, I can see it working one day. I don't know if it's too soon in the future.
I think that's a symptom of the fact that we're in a different world. And I don't think the world has changed. I just think the way we see it has changed. And one of the best examples of that is podcasting. For example, you listen to podcasts, and almost always podcasters will say things like, we need more podcasts. We need more people who are using their voice to uniquely bring their perspective to these issues. And I've said it, and I've helped, multiple people start podcasts, and I've helped multiple people start podcasts exactly in the same niche that I'm in. What I call the regenerative agriculture cow focus podcast. And I've helped multiple people start that exact same podcast because they say things and they see things differently than I do. And we need them to say things and see things differently so that we all get more perspective. Because I've heard somebody say one time, if you read one author, you're a clone. If you read two authors, you're confused. If you read 1,000 authors, you're wise. And so we need many, many people bringing their voices to these issues so that we can gain wisdom, so that we can broaden our perspective and think about things differently. And I'm totally not afraid of somebody else interviewing a guest that I've already interviewed, because I think they're going to ask different questions in a different way than I am, and hopefully they'll get different answers than I did from that individual. And I think that what you're doing with inviting these other manufacturers to come to the table is the same way, is looking at it the same way of, this isn't a zero-sum game. This isn't, a race to manufacture the lowest cost equipment we can. Let's make it better. Let's get more heads around the same table and think about these issues and challenge each other to approach it differently. Does that line up with kind of what you're thinking, how you're thinking about these things?
100%. Like, it's so true. Like, I think, as you speak, who knew we're going to have a podcast about working cattle 30 years ago? And look, here today, we're on a podcast talking about working cattle. I think things change, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes people need time. And yeah, we want to work together with our competition. We've reached out to them, we've talked to them, and we share the same dealers, we share the same customers. What an opportunity! We always say here at ArrowQuip, imagine what we could do. Imagine what you can do by yourself, but imagine what you can do with an army. I think you can do so much things together versus one person. The other thing we say here is there's no lone hero. One of our values as a company is together. We want to be together in what we do, fair and agile. We can't do this alone. We all say this. We can't listen to the rancher, and we can't change an industry alone. We have to do it together. Yeah.
What are some of the other challenges you experience related to industry? Things like input costs, marketing products, some of those things. What are some of the challenges that you're facing related to the industry?
We sort of look at our input costs if you're talking about us as a manufacturer, we look at it as an investment. Whatever we pay for, or whatever the costs are in terms of a company, and that's an investment. One of those is innovation. We invest a lot of our money into innovation that goes directly to the rancher. And I hope I've answered your question correctly. But I think that's really good, is having that view on what our cost is being investment. So about 5% of what we make a year would put back into innovation. And we have no qualms in doing that and making that known to the public, because it's all about helping ranchers. The challenges we have is getting the word out there. I think if we could get the word out there more that we want to fix your problem and tell us what your problems are, I think we couldn't get enough of that. If I could just have, well, we do have a lot of input, but if we could have more input on what truly are your issues, what are you struggling with currently, what's wrong, what could we fix every day on your ranch. But I'd be interested, Clay, on what your thoughts are. Is what some of the challenges that happen out there yourself?
Yeah, I think that it's the approach, just being able to find ways to safely, like we've talked about, safely approach these cattle. And I think that a lot of times our systems, and this is all part of what we've already talked about, but our systems are created with force in mind rather than with, we're just going to get this job done no matter how much force we have to apply to get it done, rather than how does this animal actually think? How is she going to react to this pressure? How is he going to move through this system? And so we, Kurt Pate said on one of the early episodes of the Working Cows podcast, he says, as our facilities have improved, our stockmanship has decreased. And, we just keep adding more and more iron to the outside of our facilities rather than actually improving our approach and improving our, so I think that it's just a mindset thing. To me, our challenges is keeping that mindset. My wife, I always give her credit. I say she's the best stockman on this place. She's the best one at working cattle on our place, because she will remind me every time we set out to work cattle, we're going to approach this like we've got all day to do it. And if we can't approach it like that, then let's wait till we do have all day to do it. Because if we're going to try and make it go quickly, then we're not going to be able to if we're going to have to try and rush through it, then we're not going to be able to do it safely and calmly, and things are just going to degrade from there. And so I think that's one of the things. Mindset is one of our biggest challenges. Yeah, and honestly, we're bootstrapping the starting of our operation, and so it has been things that we've been able to pick up used that we're starting with. Some of them secondhand, some of them were for sale that we were able to pick up used, and so trying to use that used equipment, to still design a facility that is going to promote good cattle flow is a challenge sometimes, but that's for us personally, some of the challenges that we have.
It's interesting to hear that. You often hear, don't you? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's an interesting mindset that you talk about. If people would slow down a bit more, they would actually speed up. They'd be able to work their cattle quicker and safer. And so I think that's a really, really important point. It's a mindset. Maybe slow down sometime and say, how can I work my cattle a bit easier? Is there a better way to work it? It'd be really nice to start bringing some of those ideas from different perspectives into our market and say, they've done this in, let's make up a name, Australia, for example, or wherever it is. Maybe that will work over here. To introduce some of those concepts, but having the rancher in mind, giving them time to think about it, adapt to it, what's going to work for them.
What is the best venue that you guys have found for getting that feedback from the rancher? What has been some of the where have been some of the best pieces of feedback you've gotten from ranchers? Where has it come to you?
I reckon it's just doing our due diligence of calling up the rancher. Those that buy equipment off us, we make an effort of calling them up. I send an email to every rancher that buys equipment from us asking for their feedback. That's a lot of the time we get feedback. Social media, we get a lot of feedback from Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and now TikTok, which is a new thing coming in. But I think it's a lot on social media. We as a company kind of have to take this seat of asking and prompting. Ranchers aren't the type of people, we aren't the type of people to just outrightly say, complain about things. We often just put up with it, and day after day, year after year, generation after generation. And so it's kind of, how can we kind of prompt that out of people in a more easier way to digest? And then it's really important for people at Arrowquip making decisions, like the leadership team, to get out onto the ranch where the equipment's being sold and where the equipment isn't being sold and used, and find out their true life problems.
You guys need to facilitate some kind of undercover boss situation where you go out there and
that would actually be kind of fun, actually.
I think it's a YouTube documentary in the making. I think it could be something that you guys could do on the sly and get out there and actually hear the rancher say, this is what I don't like about this thing. It doesn't do this right, or it does that, you know.
That's actually a good idea. We need to get onto that. Because true, ranchers don't. I mean, I've talked to so many of them and enjoyed every second of it. And you really have to push, tell me what's wrong. I need to know what's wrong.
Yeah, I always say that's the worst part about hosting a podcast for ranchers is they're never going to tell you if they don't like something. They'll just quit listening.
Yeah. But you know what? I think it goes to say that it's the industry we're in. We put up with so many problems on the daily. They've gone on for generations, and I think people have become numb. And sometimes we don't realize some of the problems we're dealing with. Ranchers are in ranching for the passion of it. They're not doing it for the money. Definitely not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the passion. And I think that goes to show why people don't complain often. They're so passionate about this industry.
Yeah. And so I guess, you've mentioned a couple of venues, but can you talk a little bit about some of the spaces you've created for people who maybe do own Arrowquip equipment or don't, and to say, hey, these are venues for you to share with us, and you go to this link or go to this social media page, and this is how you can share with us. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
100%. We do have a link. We call it the Form C, where it's form complaint, we call it, but that's why it's called the Form C, where anyone can go on our website and actually fill out, okay, these are my problems. And that comes directly to us, and we'll address them daily. We have a meeting internally where we go over all the issues that come in. That's probably one of the places where you can be really direct about it. I think the other really direct, and I mentioned this just before, direct way of coming to us is actually talking to me personally and saying, here's my actual problems I've had. I guess the other actual venue we use is a Zoom every month with our dealers that sell to the ranchers, and they talk to them every day, and their ranchers themselves as well. And so we'll get them all on a Zoom and say, okay, what are the problems happening out there? What are people saying? What do we need to fix? And I think probably one of our proudest moments as a company, not to sound arrogant, is our 24/7 client care service. Caring about the customer is so important. So we have a 24-hour customer service program where if something breaks down, you'll get it to your place in 24 hours. And so we get a lot of the feedback there, a lot of the complaints that we want to hear there. For example, I'll be open about it, one of the most common things we get with our chutes is the headgate slips. It isn't the best. It's probably one of the best. I don't want to sound arrogant. Probably one of the better ones offered out there, but it's not good enough because the headgate keeps slipping. And we get people tell us a lot. So we're addressing that problem as we speak, just as an example. And then lastly, I'd probably finish off with saying we back all this up with our brand promise that if you injure yourself on an Arrowquip piece of equipment, we'll give you money back in full and you can keep the equipment. So it keeps us accountable internally to find the problems and fix them quickly.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Baja Gold Salt Company. From the makers of C90 Ocean Minerals, Baja Gold Mineral Sea Salt is the world's healthiest, most flavorful sea salt. Enjoy reduced sodium levels and more of the minerals and trace elements your body needs for peak performance. Minerals like magnesium, calcium, and potassium, and trace elements like boron, zinc, manganese, iron, and more. Our new product line will help ensure you have optimal energy, hydration, and performance throughout your day. Plus, add an extra burst of flavor for your culinary creations. Visit us at BajaGoldSaltCo.com today or click the link in the show notes. Questions? Call us at 770-361-6092. Can you talk to me a little bit about what ranchers can learn? Because the one of the bottom line ideas of the Working Cows podcast is to start looking at ranching as a business. Yeah, it's a lifestyle and it's a great lifestyle, but we shouldn't subsidize a poor performing business by telling ourselves it's a lifestyle. We should look at ways to think outside the box, make money at this so that it can be less stressful and more enjoyable. And so I think that there's some lessons that ranchers can learn from corporations in terms of problem solving. And can you tell me about some of the problem solving process that you guys have in place to take this feedback and then let's come up with a real solution for that and some of the things that work well for you guys from that perspective?
Absolutely. And I think it's tough because what you say is you're mixing a lifestyle with a profession. It's like, you're passionate about it, but also it's a profession. It's got to bring the profit in. At the end of the day, got to put food on the table. Very key. It's to look after a family. If there was anything that I could say on that would be probably there's a lot of people out there that are experts in more the financial side, if that's your weakness, or if, you need someone to manage, maybe you want to start marketing your ranch. That's generally a good thing to do. A lot of people getting to farm to table, that's a little side hustle you can make money on. I think if I could say what Araquip's done internally, we've said we're not the experts of what we do. So we get outside help in and say, come help us, advise us on what we should do to help our financial situation, advise us on what we should do to fix this particular problem in our company. And that could be like a ranch. Okay, I'm on a ranch. I got a financial problem. There's tons of financial helpers out there. Reach out, say, look, I got a problem. Help me fix it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think that just being willing to admit that you're not the expert, in this area. Yeah. Are you the expert in animal husbandry as a rancher? Are you the expert in, stockmanship? Maybe, you might be, but if you're the expert in all those areas, you're probably not the expert in, managing cash flow and some of those things. And so you can call in that outside help and find people to help you do that better. And I think that's just goes back to that issue of culture. What is the culture? Is the culture it's me, myself, and I, and the team of the people that share my last name, and that's the only people that are ever involved in this operation? I think that the ceiling of that operation will be lower than the ceiling of the operation that's willing to invite in these outside voices to speak into some of those things. Would you agree with that? Is that true in your experience?
Yeah, and it goes back to the saying, you can be good at everything, but you'll be great at nothing. Why not be great at one thing? That's what we do as a company. That's why we really focus on the rancher. Fix their problems, make their ranch more efficient. How can we do that better? How can we bring more things to the shoot side, where they can dehorn safely, where they can do more things at shoot side, whatever else you need to do. Weigh. As the other thing I encourage, it comes to mind, talking to a lot of ranchers, I try to encourage is to try and manage your books in terms of your weight of your cows, get your price you deserve for your cow based on their weight, understand some of the details about your cattle that's going to get you better bang for your buck. Now, I know people that really keep a close eye on all their records for cows, for their cattle, and some people that don't. The ones that do, 9 times out of 10, speaking carefully, tend to bring more profit in because they know how much they can charge for a cow, and exactly what it's valued at. And what happens to be, you need a shoot to do that. So we offer that.
It's not just a animal handling tool or a personnel safety tool. It's also a livestock data collection tool. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And I would not be surprised, not speaking out of the box here, is maybe that's where we go as a company, is if that's going to help the rancher is keep better records, where it's easy and it's not hard and controlled by the government at every second, then we're more than willing to follow that trend.
Yeah. What do you think is the best way to inspire the next generation of rancher? What are some of the trends that you're seeing in the industry?
It goes back to our mission we set as a company is we're inspiring tomorrow's rancher by solving problems today. We need to be able to fix all the problems. I mean, anyone would come into ranching if some of the problems were fixed. It was easy to come into. You have to think outside the box when you ask that question, or we have to, because it's like, who is going to come into the industry? It's probably people that aren't already in the industry. It's probably someone that's lived in the city for most of their life and are looking to come out of the country. How can we train them up and give them the tools to be part of our industry and live the lifestyle that's so cool to live? We want to advertise it, and we're going to do our best through marketing to really market the coolness, lack of a better word, of this community. It's so cool, like to have a neighbor that understands you as much, as family is such a cool thing to be part of. So we've got to keep addressing some of these issues in the industry. And we're looking for ideas to inspire more people into it. It's got to be younger generations. But in the same sentence, you have to say, how can we help keep the current ranchers in ranching too? Because that's only going to inspire their next generations of their son, their daughter, their nephews, their nieces to come onto the family ranch and keep the legacy alive.
Yeah. If they can see them enjoying that business and the lifestyle into, their later years, then it's more attractive to them. And, I think that there's a host of ways that you guys are helping with that, and I think that from the looks of the equipment and some of those things that I've been able to see, it looks like it's not, it's not just all about strength, being able to use them. It's a fairly low leverage or maybe high leverage, depending on how you're measuring it. But the leverage is maximized so that it doesn't take a lot of effort to make those things work.
Why make it harder? We often say that. Why make it harder to use? Why not make it easy? So, if your wife wants to use the equipment, it's just as easy as the husband in the case is. That's why not? Why not make it easy? Have more time for your family. Isn't that what this is all about? Is enjoying family time. That's what we're in it for. Is we want to enjoy life.
And I think that a lot of times women in those situations are better. I think of the video that went around social media probably last year of this young lady sitting, I think in Australia they'd call it a race, but sitting on an alleyway, and there's sheep coming at her really at a rapid pace, and I think she's sorting them like 6 or 7 ways. She's got both hands and her feet going, and then every once in a while she'll reach over to a different gate and open it to go that way. And every time that video gets shared somewhere, there's a guy in the comments somewhere that says, that is self-aware enough to say there is not a man alive that could handle that much data coming at him at one point and make the right decision that consistently. And I think that sometimes women in those shoot scenarios where you've got a couple of different levers that you need to hit at the right time to get the animal captured safely, they do better in those scenarios sometimes than men do, more naturally better at it anyways than sometimes men do. And so I think that sometimes that's one of those things that we should be aware of and take into account when we choose who's doing what job today.
Trust me, I grew up with quite a few sisters, and you learn they're always right. So I guess that's where we go with that. And I think it's good though. Like, honestly, we have to, and we have to go towards the easier route to work cattle. It goes back to something we say internally: stop focusing so much on the solution, start focusing on the problem. Because if you start focusing on the problem, you will find the solution would be easier for the rancher. Often we hear people say, come out with this product, like come out with often we say calf table. We always go back and say, okay, but what's the problem? What's the problem with your current calf table? Why are you coming to us for that? And the same thing, we came out with a big portable corral system, and ranchers came to us and said, you need to come out with this. You need to come out with this. And we kept going back and saying, but what's the problem? Why us? Like, what do we need to fix to make this easier? Because if we just come out with the same portable corral as everyone else, it doesn't make sense. So we've got some stuff coming out towards the end of the year to keep your eyes peeled for, that's going to revolutionize this industry, and it's going to be easier and more efficient. The industry hasn't seen what's coming, so we're very excited about it.
And I think that goes back to that discussion of culture that we had at the beginning, and becoming one of those brands in the industry that people say, I trust these guys to innovate on the problem well. And part of that, the reason why people trust you, I think, is because you ask that question. Not, okay, let's just make what they're asking us to make, but why do you want us to make that? What's the problem that you, with your existing setup, that you wish was done better, and how can we innovate and fix that issue? So I think that's one of those things that can help be instructive to ranchers and say, stop focusing on the solution, start focusing on the problem. What is it that's not working? And then problem solve from there. So I appreciate that. Why should young people be engaged with the industry? What are some of the things that you are seeing from a market perspective that is incumbent upon us to engage young people in the industry?
Why not? I mean, why not? Get to understand the industry. It's so awesome. I mean, it's the little piece of this life now that's actually normal. That hard work, you reap rewards. This community is more than just, a job. Everyone out there, I have friends that aren't in this community, and, they often get to a stage in their life where they've just got no more purpose. And I often say to them, why don't you come and start a farm or a ranch? You'll find you have purpose every day. That's probably the main thing I'd say. And then why not be part of something that's growing? Beef consumption is only growing. So we'll need more ranchers ever than before in the next 30 years. Between 2020 and 2050, we're going to probably have one of the biggest increases of beef consumption because there's more people. And the naysayers and the vegans can say what they want. It's not true. That's just noise. We need to really be advocates for these people coming in our industry, and show them what a ranching lifestyle is like. And I think how we get that across is by showing how it's been done before, showing that, it can be successful and it can be very profitable and it can be very fulfilling. In fact, it always is fulfilling. I mean, you put something in the ground and it grows, or you raise something from calf to full grown, it's an amazing experience, but you don't understand it until you've actually done it in the flesh. So we want to really be advocates on more the positive side of our industry and how it can be really successful for coming into it.
Yeah. I think that, one of the reasons why people are willing to do the ranch for a low return, is because it's so fulfilling, because of all the things that you spoke about. And so I think that there's a lot of poorly managed land in this country, and there's a lot of underutilized land in this country. And so there's room, there's room for people to come in and to start that lifestyle. I think that one of the things that I'm really fond of talking about, especially when we talk about the younger generation, is the opportunity that exists on the row crop acres in this country that are only in use for 90, 120, at the most 180 days out of the year, and then they're dormant for the rest of the year. Well, there's 6 months or more of the year that those row crop acres could be used for livestock integration, and it would be better for the land. It would be better for the cash flow of the farmer. And so there's an opportunity there. And I think sometimes it's going to take the young person with some initiative to go out and knock on the door and say, hey, I want to run cows on your land when you're not using it. And then I've got another place to take them in the summer. And when you are using it, I've got a place lined up. I'm going to take them there. But if I could, your piece of land is the missing piece in my operation. And here are the benefits to you: cash flow, soil health with the manure and urine spread out for you. And so I think that if young people were willing to approach it from that perspective, and to be honest, even some young people who I look at my neighborhood, and there's a lot of big young families, but there are not enough acres to support all the kids that are in their early teens and looking at transitioning out of the house. And so some of those kids might have to move, but that doesn't mean that they can't be involved in ranching. They could go somewhere else. They could go somewhere else and find the opportunity to be involved in ranching, or think outside the box and think smaller ruminant species in the West, or whatever they have to do. But there's a lot of opportunity, but we have to be willing to say, probably isn't going to look like it looked for dad, granddad, great granddad. It's going to look different. And that's not to mention all the other people who are watching YouTube channels like Our Wyoming Life and saying, hey, there's an opportunity. That's something I think I would love to do. And then following in their footsteps and going out and finding, just bootstrapping it from nothing. And so I think that there's both of those populations that present a big opportunity going forward. And, especially the first scenario that I laid out, that's going to take some easily portable equipment probably to get that done. And so I think that there's obviously a place for more innovation in that regard.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And just to extend on what you were saying about the younger people is we need to be advocates, but we need to invite them into the community too. I think people get scared of it, and we've got to make it's not scary at all. In fact, it's probably one of the best industries ever to be in. The people are so kind, so warm, so welcoming. And it's such an awesome thing to be part of at Arrowquip. We're actually a really young team, and that's why we're being advocates for the ranchers, because we're like, no, we want to be advocates, and we're putting our stake in the ground and saying, this is our job, and we're young too. So why don't you come in and join this movement and be part of something better than just a silly old job in the city?
What does that advocation look like?
I think it's going to talk to them. It's getting to universities. It's talking in schools. It's doing the little things that count, and it's inviting them and getting on the right channels, just like this, on podcasts, and speaking about it. Because if that's the least I can do, I'll do it. Is to bring more people into this industry. Is come on here and talk about them, encourage them, come on to the scene and come be with us. And then probably the greatest thing is do some marketing around it too, is attract people into it, show people the behind the scenes of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that, you talk about going to universities and obviously a lot of bright young minds there. And sometimes the people who are best at solving the problems are the ones that have never seen it before. And that the solution is really obvious to them because they haven't been looking at it, like you said earlier, for 30 years or for generations. They haven't been looking at it for generations, and they look at that and they're like, why do you do that way? Wouldn't it be easier if you did it this way? And everybody sitting there is like, I don't know. We've never thought of that. I'm a fish. I didn't know I was in water.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the problems, and sometimes the solution is really simple. We just need a different set of eyes to see it. And so I think that there's value in inviting those people out to our operations. So
absolutely, and there's a lot of experts too. I mean, we've invited them up to here, and they're getting older in their generation, which we need to grasp hold of. I mean, you got Dr. Tom that we had up here before, and we're just talking about it. How can we get his legacy and bring it to the next generation? How can we help his legacy live on? I mean, you got Temple Grandin, all these people, Dr. Ron Gill, Kurt Pate, all these people. How can we help their legacy grow? Who is going to be the next generation of these spokespersons? And who's going to bring that legacy to the next level? It's a challenge for all of us, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, I really appreciate your time today. Not the least of which, or the reason I appreciate your time today, is because I got to have an Australian accent and I didn't have to manage a 17-hour time difference. So it was really a big win for me.
Oh, no, I'm hoping I get American accent one day.
I had to. I've interviewed some Australians before, but that 17-hour time difference is a challenge, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah, I know. I've lived it before.
I'm sure you have. So, anything else that you were hoping to cover today, or anything else that you that was on your mind?
Not really. Number one, I really enjoyed sitting down and talking to you, Clay. It was actually an honor. But we just want to get our name out there, and look, we're humans. We just want to help, and it doesn't get any simpler than that. Our number one goal is to get on 50,000 ranches in the next 3 years, and to help those 50,000 ranches. It's an internal goal that we've set for ourselves, that we'll strive for, and our game plan to do that is by inspiring the next generation by solving problems today. So let's give it a whirl.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of a big, hairy, audacious goal. So it sounds like you guys have got yourself one there. So
yeah, we're crazy. We're crazy.
Mark, thanks for your time today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Clay.
Very good stuff there with Mark. Really appreciate his perspective. Really looking forward to next week on the Working Cows podcast. We'll be talking with Jaime Elizondo. And I just want to share with you one quick note from that episode that I think will entice you to make sure that you don't miss it. And that is that he makes a statement in the course of that episode that selective grazing becomes a crutch for animals that aren't fully adapted to their environment. It becomes another form of supplementation rather than going out and writing a check for a supplement to help animals that aren't adapted to their environment survive. We selectively graze, and that allows animals that aren't adapted to our environment to stay longer than they would otherwise. So pretty interesting perspective, and there's a whole lot more very practical, helpful stuff about genetic selection and how we go about selecting replacement heifers out of our herd. So really looking forward to the next episode of the Working Cows podcast coming your way real soon. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.